Hello class! I am your teacher in this subject. I am teacher Nori and I will guide you throughout this lesson. Our first lesson is about the influence of communication in media and information literacy. Our objectives in our lesson is to define communication and media, to discuss the elements of communication and the communication models, and to describe how media and information affect communication. What is communication? What does it mean? According to the Merriam-Webster, communication is the act or progress of using words, sounds, signs, or behaviors to express or exchange information or to express your ideas, thoughts, feelings, etc. to someone else. On the other hand, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, communication is the exchange of information and the expression of feeling that can result in understanding. What are the two basic types of communications? Two basic types of communications are nonverbal communication and verbal communication. Nonverbal communication are signs, symbols, colors, gestures, body language, and facial expressions, while verbal communication are either oral or written. Process of communication is the transmission or passage of information or message from the sender through a selected channel to the receiver, overcoming barriers that affect its pace. The process of communication is a cyclic one, as it begins with the sender and ends with the sender in a form of a feedback. There are different elements in the process of communication. The first element in the process of communication is sender. The very foundation of communication process is laid by the person who transmits or sends the message. Sender is the sender of the message, which may be a thought, an idea, a picture, a symbol, a report, or an order, and postures and gestures, even a momentary smile. A sender is the initiator of the message that need to be transmitted. After having generated the idea, information, etc., the sender encodes it in such a manner that can be well understood by the receiver. The second element in the process of communication is the message. Message is the information conveyed by the words, as in speech and write-ups, signs, pictures, or symbols, depending upon the situation and the nature and importance of information desired to be sent. Message is the heart of the communication. It is the content the sender wants to convey to the receiver. It can be verbal, both written, and spoken or nonverbal, such as pictorial or symbols. The third element in the process of communication is the encoding. Encoding is putting the targeted message into appropriate medium, which may be verbal or nonverbal, depending upon the situation, time, space, and nature of the message to be sent. The sender puts the message into a series of symbols, pictures, or words which will be communicated to the intended receiver. Encoding is an important step in the communication process, as wrong and inappropriate encoding may defeat the true intent of the communication process. The fourth element in the process of communication is channel. Channel refers to the way or mode the message flows or is transmitted through. The message is transmitted over a channel that links the sender with the receiver. The message may be oral or written, and it may be transmitted through a memorandum, a computer, telephone, cell phone, apps, or televisions. Since each channel has its advantages and disadvantages, the choice of proper selection of the channel is paramount for effective communication. The fifth element in the process of communication is the receiver. Receiver is the person or group who the message is meant for. He may be a listener, a reader, or a viewer. Any negligence on the part of the receiver may make the communication ineffective. Receiver needs to comprehend the message sent in the best possible manner, such that the true intent of the communication is attained. The receiver is a significant factor in communication process, as the sender is, that is, the other end of the process. The sixth element in the process of communication is decoding. Decoding refers to interpreting or converting the sent message into intelligible language. It simply means comprehending the message. The seventh element in the process of communication is the feedback. Feedback is the ultimate aspect of communication process. It refers to the response of the receiver as to the message sent to him or her by the sender. Feedback is necessary to ensure that the message has been effectively encoded, sent, decoded, and comprehended. Consider the following points related to the feedback involved in the process of communication. First, it enhances the effectiveness of the communication as it permits the sender to know the efficacy of his message. Second, it enables the sender to know if his or her message has been properly comprehended. Third, the analysis of feedbacks helps improve future messages. Feedback, like the message, can be verbal or nonverbal and transmitted through carefully chosen channel of communication. Fourth, we can represent the above steps in a model as the model of communication process. Now let's find out the types of feedback. According to Kevin Eikenberry, the world-famous leadership exponent, mentioned the 4 types of feedback. The first type of feedback is negative feedback or corrective comments about past behavior. These are the things that didn't go well. Second type of feedback is positive feedback or affirming comments about past behavior. These are the things that went well and need to be repeated. The third type of feedback is negative feed-forward or corrective comments about future behavior. These are the things that don't need to be repeated next time. The fourth type of feedback is positive feed-forward or affirming comments about future behavior. These are the things that would improve performance in the future. As you begin to understand the power of balancing both positive and negative input in observations about the past, which can't be changed, and advice for the future, which can be changed, you have a new paradigm for the feedback and coaching process. Next, let us proceed to identify the transmission models. Laswell's communication model was developed by Harold D. Laswell. Harold Laswell is an American sociologist and psychologist. He is best known for his linear model of communication that he developed in 1948. Laswell communication model describes who is saying something, which channel is used to convey the messages, who the message is aimed at, and what effect the message has. Communication sciences and public relations still often use this model, making this a classic sender-receiver model. Shannon Weaver's communication model. Claude Shannon was an American mathematician, electronic engineer, and Warren Weaver was an American scientist. Both of them joined together to write an article in Bell System Technical Journal called A Mathematical Theory of Communication, and also called as Shannon-Weaver Model of Communication. This model is specially designed to develop the effective communication between sender and receiver. Also, they find factors which affecting the communication process called noise. At first, the model was developed to improve the technical communication. Later, it's widely applied in the field of communication. The noise in this model is a distraction that affects the process of messages, like horn sounds, thunder, and crowd noise, or encoded signals that may distract the channel during the transmission process, which affect the communication flow, or the receiver may not receive the correct message. To understand it clearly, here is the practical example of Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Watch and listen closely. Here's a scene in an office. Mr. Thompson made a call to his assistant. He said,
"Come here, I want to see you."
During his call, a noise appeared, or a transmission error, and his assistant received, "Shh."
I want.
So the assistant asked Mr. Thompson again. He said,
"What do you want, Mr. Thompson?"
When we look at the Shannon-Weaver's model of communication, this is how the scene in the office takes effect. The sender is Mr. Thompson. The encoder is the telephone of Mr. Thompson. The channel is the cable. The noise is the transmission error. The decoder is the telephone of the assistant, and the receiver is the assistant. Due to the transmission error or noise, assistant wasn't able to understand Mr. Thompson's messages. Wesley and Maclean's model of communication. Wesley and Maclean's model of communication was suggested by Bruce Wesley and Malcolm S. Maclean Jr. in 1957. This model was an adaptation from Newcomb's model of communication, which talked about co-orientation for simultaneous orientation in a two-way communication. Also consisted of some concepts from Lewin's model. Source A. Source is the message creator and the sender. Environment is the physical and psychological situation where the message is being created and sent. Sensory experience is the first thing that the source sees, by which the source gets the idea for the formation of the message. Objects of orientation is the person's social and cultural reality that has formed from his or her past experiences and teachings. Message interpretation or coding. Message is interpreted with the objects of orientation of the receiver of the message. Receiver or B. The person who gets the message sent by the source and the person who interprets according to his or her objects of orientation. Object of orientation of receiver, or X and B. The views and ideas of the receiver or his or her social reality is his or her object of orientation. This is how the receiver interprets the message. Feedback. The receiver forms another message after interpreting the message and sends it back to the sender. It is known as feedback. Gatekeeper. Gatekeepers are found in mass communication. The gatekeeper is the editor who filters the message as per the needs of the audience and media institution. Opinion leader. Opinion leaders are well-known and recognized people who can influence public opinions. After learning the transmission models, let us move on to the reception model. Osgood's Graham model of communication was developed by Charles E. Osgood, an American psychologist, and Wilbur Graham, the father of communication studies. The Osgood's Graham model is built on the theory that communication is a two-way street with a sender and a receiver, meaning that it required two participants taking turns sending and receiving a message. Let's find out the components of Osgood's Graham. Most communication models have different components that help to identify the structure of the model. In the Osgood's Graham model, the components are fairly simple. Sender. This is the person who encodes or converts and sends the message. Message. This is the content being shared between the parties. Receiver. This is the person who decodes or interprets the message. Semantics barriers. The backgrounds, beliefs, experiences, and values that influence how the sender conveys a message and how the receiver interprets it. Now that you have identified the elements of communication and the communication models, let's find out now the definition of media and information. What is media? If you're thinking about social media, movies, or news, you are correct. Media is the communication outlets or tools used to store and deliver information or data. The term media refers to the components of the mass media communications industry, such as print media, publishing, the news media, photography, cinema, broadcasting, radio and television, and computers. What is information? Information refers to a data that is accurate and timely. Second, specific and organized for a purpose. Third, presented within a context that gives its meaning and relevance. Fourth, can lead to an increase in understanding and decrease in uncertainty. Great! Now that we have learned our lesson for today, it's time for us to assess our knowledge. Activity 1. Define me. Follow these instructions. First, prepare your one whole sheet of paper. Write your name, grade, and section, the date, and the score. Write also the directions. Let me read to you our activity's direction. Complete the missing letters in the box and define the missing word. Write your answer on a sheet of paper. Also, write down the next fill-in-the-box activity. Do not forget to write our rubrics for this activity. The content is 10 points. The organization of the idea is 5 points, with a total of 15 points. Alright, it's time for us to answer. As you can see, there are 13 horizontal boxes that has 6 empty boxes and 7 boxes with letters in it. What you need to do is to complete the missing letter in the box. Once you filled in the missing letters, a completed word will be formed and you will have to define it in paragraph. I will give you 3 minutes to answer. Good luck! Good work! Now, it's time for the next fill in the box. There are 5 horizontal boxes that has 3 boxes with letters and 2 empty boxes. The first box is empty, the second one has letter E, the third box is empty, the fourth box is letter I, the fifth or last box is letter A. Same instructions also goes with this one. You will fill out the missing letters, and when you have formed a word, you will then define it. Easy, right? Let us start your timer in 3, 2, 1. Awesome! That wasn't difficult, right? I'm sure you're ready for another activity. Alright, let's prepare another one whole sheet of paper and a ball pen to start. Activity 2. On your paper, do not forget to write your name, grade and section, the date, and the score. Also, the rubrics. Directions of this activity. Answer the following questions. Write your answer on a sheet of paper. Number 1. Briefly discuss the elements of communication. Number 2. Which one is better? Transmission model of communication, Laswell communication model, or Shannon-Weaver's communication model? And why? You have 5 minutes to answer. Good luck! Good job! Wait, what did you say? You want another activity? Wow! Alright then. I know you're excited. Let's prepare another one whole sheet of paper. Again, write your name, grade and section, the score and the date today. The rubric used is still the same. Directions. Analyze the given picture by answering the following questions. Write your answer on a sheet of paper. I want you to analyze this picture. In this picture, there are 3 boys sitting in a classroom. The other 2 are holding a math and science book, while staring at the other boy in their class who is chewing gum, while listening to his gadget. What do you think the picture tells us about? You have 3 minutes to answer. How does the media and information affect the communication nowadays? You have 3 minutes to answer. Good work! Since you already know the meaning of communication and media, we have also discussed the elements of communication and the communication models. You also described how media and information affect communication. You know what? You deserve a clap. Let's give ourselves a clap. Woohoo! On our next class, study and research about media literacy, information literacy, and technology literacy, and the responsible use of media and information. It's time for me to go. See you next time.